Welcome, my name is Sharon and this is Trio.of.Witches Tarot. In this video I kind of wanted to talk about different systems of tarot. I see a lot of questions in some Facebook groups that I belong to where people are kind of confused by all these different systems and what they are and what's pippish and what does that mean and what is Thoth and what are all these different systems. And in one of them I provided a quite extensive and long explanation, and I thought, you know, I should just do a video. So these are some decks we'll be talking about. And so let's jump in kind of at the beginning, and I'm going to preface this with I am not a tarot expert, nor do I have extensive knowledge in my head about the history of tarot, but the Marseille Tarot is one of the first styles of tarot decks, and I don't have like a traditional Marseille style tarot. I have these two, which are stylized versions of a Marseille deck. So the Marshmallow. So we have the Fool, and he has a cat in this instance and a dog in this instance, and Magician, and the High Priestess, or La Papessa, if that's how you pronounce that, depending on the language. This is a Spanish deck, and this is French. But we'll get to comparing it to the RWS later. And then we have the Empress, and the Emperor, and the Hierophant, and we can, the Pope here. We can see in these that we have some consistent symbology across both of them, even if the art style differs. And one of the first differences, if you're familiar with the Smith-Waite, is that in later tarots, the position of justice and strength were reversed. So they were originally, justice was 8, and then strength was 11. And other than that, for the most part, the majors are consistent throughout all of the major tarot systems as far as the ordering and the cards. Thoth is a little different, but we'll get to that. And then the Marseille, of course, is a what people call a pip style, but it's a Marseille style pip where the symbols on the cards are in a particular arrangement and are not embellished much with anything else that gives you any kind of intuitive clue as to what that means. So there's a very heavy emphasis on numerology, which I don't know that well and have to look up all the time. So this Morandi does, as we're noticing, diverge a bit from the pattern of what those, the arrangement. And then we have the Page, or the Valet, and the Knight, and the Queen, and the King, which we're familiar with. And then this is a very typical Marseille style Ace of Cups, a Chalice. And then again, we see this not very intuitive arrangement of all of those. So we don't need to go through the whole Marseille deck. It's the same. One interesting thing though is that, so the swords, if we noticed before with the wands, get a wand, there's no way for you to know other than you know that that's a wand. And the difference is that the swords are curved and the wands are straight, except in like this deck where it's clear, that's a sword, sort of, and it was clear with the wands that they were wands. But for the most part, a Marseille deck will look like this, and you're just going to need to know that the curved ones are the swords. Unless, you know, there's more than one, or there's an uneven number, and then you have a single sword like that that tells you that it's a sword. So those are Marseille decks. Okay, so the Untold Tarot is a really good book by Caitlin Matthews. And it goes through a lot. It's not hard to read. It talks about the suits and what they mean and how you combine the suit with the numerology. Somewhere in here is the numerology. And then there's, trying to see where it is. There's a lot about the directionality when you're reading Marseille, like who's which way things are facing and stuff. And that applies to other tarot decks as well. There's also the Tarot, the Open Reading, which is another great book on Marseille, and maybe a little bit easier for some people. And then there is Tarot on Earth, which is more of a workbook than a guide. The other two you could just use as guides. So this is another great book on Marseille, and there you get a flavor of what the artwork traditionally looks like, and I don't love it, so the traditional artwork. I love the book. Okay, so then we have a deck which is a modern deck, but is based on older systems, Marseille style, but more stylized, more imagery on the pip decks, and it's still based on systems prior to the Golden Dawn and the creation of the Thoth and the RWS tarots. This is by Nigel Jackson, and I think it's a really pretty deck. It's got a lot of Christian symbology in it, but tarot is based, there was a lot of Christian symbology from the very beginning in tarot. So, and we can see here that our High Priestess, she still has the two pillars there. And if we look at this other deck, which is all out of order, I can't find it. Anyway, the pillars are a standard. This is incorporating some Hebrew letters, which are technically not, you know, historically correct, I don't think. Correct me if I'm wrong. So this feels more Golden Dawn, more post Golden Dawn. So there is a little mashup happening in this deck, but it does retain the ordering where we have Justice at 8, and then Strength at 11. Which may or may not be significant to you. You know, you can still read the deck. It still has all of the same, it has all the same majors, regardless of the order, and a lot of the familiar symbology and all of these cards. But then we have this more pippish style, but they're lightly illustrated. So we do have a little hint in here to what this card means rather than just what the numerology is. So, you know, we have a boat here, so it's something we're familiar with from the RWS. Guy slaying a dragon. It's kind of fun stuff. And so it's a little easier to read if you are looking for those clues. It has these names of different historical or mythological people, which honestly, I'm trying to look in the book right now and see what the intent of that was. I've seen this in another deck, and I'm trying to remember what deck that was. And I will have to insert something that says what the point of that is. So we have, and it's on the knaves or pages, not on the knights, which is interesting, and then on the queens and on the kings. And then we have that familiar Marseille style cup that has a castle and a chalice, a mermaid, so that makes me happy. So we have a little bit more to go on, and a unicorn in this deck than just all of those things. So another deck that I have shown in other videos is the Tarot of the Master, or it's the Vachetta Tarot, and this is a different historical style of a tarot deck. And so we can see here, so there's a cat instead of a dog, which we're used to, and the magician here is a little bit more, less magical, as it were. And then we have our same characters that we're used to, but now love, or the lovers, looks different. We just have Cupid, and we don't have the two people that we're used to seeing. And here we have the Chariot, but it's just a guy without the horses or whatever creatures in whatever deck are pulling it. And we have Justice at 8 still. And our Hermit is sitting rather than walking. The Wheel, and there's Strength. And that is one of the best devils ever. And a lot of this deck, I think, Robert M. Place, he harkens back to a lot of this imagery in this deck. So again, we have the more Pippish style, less illustrated than they were in the Secrets of the Rose, but more illustrated than they are in a traditional Marseille. And I apologize, this isn't in order, but this is one of my favorite decks. I like that I have to stretch still, but I still get some hints from the illustrations on these. And I just think this is a beautiful, beautiful deck. Even this version, which is not as colorful as the more expensive version I have shown in other videos. So that is Tarot of the Master. Okay, so next I wanted to show, before we get into the next evolution, some modern day Pippish decks that you may be familiar with. I just have, this is the Wild Unknown, I just have the mini Lily White and Pagan Otherworlds. So let's start with the Wild Unknown, because it is a mass market deck that you can you can get for cheap on Amazon. So here's wands. That's upside down, and it's not in order, and it goes its own way with on a lot of the cards. There's 10 of Cups. So you can see it's very pippy and minimal even in the major cards. So it's 8 of Wands. Like, I'm not even sure. Some of them might mix up the swords and the wands on it. And it's got animals. I don't think there's any people in this. So the 9 of Wands, it looks like. I have this and I'm not that familiar with it. Sometimes I have to look in the book to figure out what card I'm looking at. So this is a very Pippish deck. If you wanted an example of a modern day Pippish deck. Or pippy, people will say. It's very pippy. So that is the Wild Unknown. And then we have Pagan Otherworlds, which is a really beautiful deck. And the majors, again, are what I'm not going to do a full walkthrough because there's plenty of walkthroughs of Pagan Otherworlds should you want to see it. It has all your traditional major cards and strength is 8 here. So now we've jumped to switching to the Golden Dawn arrangement of, there's the extra moon phase cards. The Golden Dawn arrangement where strength is 8 and justice is 11. So we do have some scenery. So we can, and when we see the RWS, you can see, excuse me, you can see that this is very RWS in what it's representing. It just feels kind of like the people were taken out. But it also, in a lot of them, has a very Marseille feel to the arrangement. So it's like it's scenic pips, maybe is what I would call it. It could be wrong. Correct me if I'm wrong. This feels like what I would call scenic pips instead of fully illustrated. That's beautiful. There's like something happened. There's scenery, thus scenic. But it is very, what people would say, pippish. There isn't a lot going on in the cards, but you do have more hints than just the numerology to what those minor pip cards mean. And then the last one is the Lily White. Another beautiful deck. Definitely goes its own way in the majors, but, well, I mean, for some of them, like the Fool, there's no person there, but they're still in, the order that we expect. And then Justice is 8 here, though, so they've taken, the Marseille arrangement of strength and justice. And everything else in the majors remains the same. No surprises there. But again, this is very much like the Pagan Otherworlds, or it's kind of like a mashup of Pagan Otherworlds and Wild Unknown almost, because we've got animals, we have a little bit of scenic thing, and then we have animals in some of them. So it's more illustrated than, let's say, Pagan Otherworlds is in some aspects, but it's still very, very pippish. So that is the Lily White. And then along came the Golden Dawn. And I'm not going to get into that. I'm not an expert on it. And that's not what this video is about. And they created a system on top of tarot where they applied a lot of astrological, Kabbalistic, Hebrew letters, the tree of life. So they put a lot more symbology on top of the existing 78 cards and the same major arcana that we're used to. They switched up strength and justice. This is the RWS Smith-Waite tarot that by now probably you are familiar with, and everybody's familiar with. It's everywhere. This is the Tabula Mundi, which is a version of the Thoth Tarot, which came out of Golden Dawn also. So it has a lot more esoteric stuff packed into it, as it were. And some of the cards, so mine, the regular Thoth, I think, has like a keyword underneath the title of the card. And this one is much more modern day than the regular Thoth Tarot. So you can see here we have Hebrew letter, has something to do maybe with the tree of life. I don't know. This is stuff I don't know that much about. And astrological symbols. So the lovers, there was there. And the chariot. And then once we get here, this is what Thoth is. So instead of strength, we have art. And then we have the hermit. And then the wheel of fortune is fortune. A lot of decks do that. And then instead of justice, we have lust. So this is actually what looks like strength to me. And then art felt more like, well, I don't know, art's its own thing. Hangman, death. And instead of temperance, we have adjustment. Such a beautiful star card. The moon. And what happened? Where did the sun get to? Well, I don't know where the sun is. Apparently. So I lost the sun. There would be the sun. And then instead of judgment, we have the aeon or the eon or the era. And then instead of the world, we have the universe. And I think this isn't in order, so I should take care of that. Okay, so I grabbed a couple of decks which are modern day Thothy decks. So the Cosmic Tarot, I don't have the box for the Cosmic Tarot, and the Jolanda Tarot. I have the Swedish version. There's an English version. The difference is that the borders on the English one are purple, and I think they're hideous. So these two decks are Thothy. So let's see why they're Thothy. So this is the Cosmic and this is the Jolanda. So we have, you know, our gator here. This one does not have that. So it's not as Thothy maybe. It kind of goes its own way a bit. These both do go their own way, but they still are Thothy. So I have a couple books for Thoth decks. So this is basically the handbook for Thoth. It's the Mirror of the Soul. And it's, you know, it doesn't have too much in it. So it's a really good book for, you know, just if you just wanted to get a Thoth deck and just start reading with it and using the guidebook. This is the book that is the companion to the Tabula Mundi Tarot. It's got a little bit more in it, but it is still very much a guidebook. So you can use this to, you know, just start reading with the deck. Cosmic Tarot, it has a companion book with this. And this is, the Cosmic Tarot has, you know, I said it was Thothy, and it is, but it also has like Hollywood characters. I don't know if you noticed any of that in there, but this book does cover some of that. Okay, so I have the Tarot of the Spirit, which is a modern day deck, and it's by US Game Systems. It's cheap, it's mass market, and it really gets into Kabbalah and the Tree of Life. So if you're interested in that, this deck and its companion book, I think there's also another volume after this one. It's a chunky book. There is a lot in it. So I have gotten this far, I think. And I'm just getting it out of the box here, trying to get all the cards. It comes with, there it is, I got it. So I forget what this card is, extra card, but it comes with this Tree of Life card, which I haven't used yet. I haven't used this a lot yet. I think it applies more to the minors when you lay it on top, but it's still your traditional cards. It's, you know, it's different artwork. It feels a little thothy to me. I don't know, just because it feels very esoteric, especially when you have this Tree of Life thing with all the paths and the Sephira and all of Sephira, I think it is. So let's get to, and then instead of like wands, it's fire. I think if we put this on here, it highlights things which elude me at this point in time. But it is supposed to highlight significant things on the cards. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, but just wanted you to know that there is this deck, and it is the Tarot of the Spirit. I think we've gotten to modern day. The Light Seers. It's a very popular deck. It is mass market. It's not expensive. It does follow the RWS system, so maybe we should put it side by side with that. So let me find it in this pile. Here it is. And my edition of the Smithwaite is the Centennial Edition. Okay. I think we're in order. So, there's a lot of symbology still in here. The colors mean something. Everything means something. But as a study deck, I like the Smithwaite. As a everyday reading deck, I have a hard time connecting with the imagery. I find it much easier to connect with the imagery in, let's say, the Light Seers or any of its many RWS based or clones. They also are called, you'll hear that it's a clone. To me, a clone means that it is really almost directly taken this imagery and done something maybe a little bit different with it. This feels more based than clone. And I have a lot of animal decks that I would call clones because they are basically this exact image, only with an animal. Maybe anthropomorphic, but an animal nonetheless. So, yes. Otherwise, it follows the imagery pretty closely. It follows the meanings very closely. Why is the world before the sun? Okay, well, we're a little bit out of order there, but that's okay. So, yes, so you can see where a clone would have a hand and the wand. Maybe just the one, but you know, this isn't even the same at all. So that is a Smithwaite based deck, very popular, easy to get, and inexpensive. And it's the Light Seers, and it has a great guidebook that goes with it. RWS Smithwaite books. So this is a very famous book. I really enjoyed it, and I actually read almost the whole thing on a plane flight across the country. So there is that one, 78 Degrees of Wisdom. I really, really like this one, the Tarot Workbook. You can use it as a workbook. I just use it as a guidebook. And it has a lot of other really useful stuff in the back. It talks some about the Tree of Life, which I touched on very briefly. So there's that one. And then this is a new one I just got. Well, it's not new. It's actually used, but Rachel Pollack. So it's a same author as the 78 Degrees of Wisdom. You know, it has like a nice coverage of a lot of topics without getting too deep on them for me. So really like this one. Okay, well, that was a lot of decks, and it wasn't as many as I had originally intended, but I think that was long enough video. So we covered Marseille and Pippish decks and scenic pips and fully illustrated pips and the Smith-Waite and modern days, you know, Smith-Waite based. We have the Tabula Mundi Thoth deck, or Thoth-based deck, Asherah, which is also Thoth-based, and some Thothy decks. I hope you enjoyed that and you found it useful. Please remember to like and subscribe and comment below, and I'd love to hear your thoughts. So thanks again for watching, and have a great day. Bye. Well, it's time for another giveaway, and this time it is not a deck I don't jive with, but a deck that it was almost cheaper to buy 2 copies and not pay for shipping than it was to buy 1 copy and pay for shipping. So I thought, well, I'll just pay the little bit extra money. I'll get a second copy and I will put it up in a giveaway. So as you saw, it's called Womanhood Revisited. And if you want to enter the drawing for this deck, put the word womanhood in your comments. And you will be entered, and you can enter in as many times as you want, but only once per video. So if you put in womanhood 5 times on the same video, you still only get 1 entry for that video. This should go a little faster. And so this deck is collage art and colorizations of like old newspaper articles and stuff and other art that he found. That's such a pretty world card. And I saw this on someone's Instagram, I believe it was, and it was the Fool card. And I just fell in love with that Fool card. And then I went out and found, I think I asked that person where they got this, and they told me that they just got it on Etsy. And it is indeed on Etsy. It's a French produced deck, so it came from France, and that's why the shipping was so expensive. And that's why buying the second copy was only a little bit more, because it got free shipping than if I just got 1 and paid for shipping. So you, whoever you are that wins this, are the recipient of a brand new deck that I just decided to buy so I could share it, because I really, really like this deck and I don't think people know about it. And I will be doing a side-by-side comparison of this with, I'm not sure what yet, with something. Obviously it's all women, and I guess you could call it, some of it curated art. Not really art, like it's just old pop culture stuff, maybe you could say. I mean, there isn't a whole lot of info on it, and then his Facebook page is in French, and at least I think it is. But I think it's a fun little deck. I'm not in love with backs. I cannot think of almost anything else that would be better than these backs. I don't even understand the backs with the front, but and it's like that more kind of cheapy feeling cardstock, so you could probably bend it and mess it up if you weren't careful with it. So that is Womanhood Revisited, and if you would like to enter to win, enter the word womanhood in your comments below, and always remember to like and subscribe. Thanks. Bye.